Welcome to Straight Talk with Sandra Reish. Are you trying to master the game of life without success? There are secrets and strategies to living your best life. We'll share some of them with you on today's show. Take advantage of this series to become an expert at relationships. All relationships. It's time to live the life that you deserve to live. Now, here's your host, Sandra Reish.
Welcome to Straight Talk with Sandra Reish, a show about living your best life possible. So every now and then I get an email or someone writes to me about a topic to do, and today's episode is on a topic that came from someone who wrote to me. They wrote to me telling me that they found themselves doing a lot of self-destructive behavior, and they wondered about that. So, we are at the beginning of 2018. And we all start off with good intentions, right? At the end of the year, we're going to go to the gym more. We're going to eat properly. We're going to, spend more time with family members or whatever you've committed to. And then, unfortunately, as we well know, and the gym phenomena really shows this, is there's like a huge spike in memberships in January. And by February, March, the gym is the one who's had the last laugh because most of those members drop out. So it does seem that there is something a little bit self-destructive about human nature, because why would we do things to ourselves or not do things to ourselves that could hurt us? So if it's a question of doing things, why do things that hurt you? And if it's a question of not doing things that could help you, why not? It seems so simple when you think about it, right? Just do things that are good for you and don't do things that are bad for you. And there's the show. Yeah, no. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. And there's definitely something, and I can definitely speak on this for myself too. There's definitely I don't know if it's a dark side, but a self-destructive side in each one of us. That especially if we're feeling a little blue, which at this time of year, certainly where I live here in Canada, there's not a lot of sun. People start to get a little bit more down. There's a very big temptation to do self-destructive behaviors. But why? Why? So before I get into that, let me just say that if you'd like to join the conversation, you can call us at 1-866-472-5792. If you have anything you want to add or any questions, all calls are welcome. If you're shy and you prefer not to do that and you want to send a text message, that's okay too. 514-796-4357, 514-796-4357. Or if you prefer to send an email, it's info@helpforanxietydepression.com. So I guess the first question is, what is a self-destructive behavior? Some are very obvious, some are not as obvious. And why do we feel compelled to do these kinds of behaviors? Could it be that when we're feeling fear and out of control, maybe even guilt, maybe even shame, doing something self-destructive, even if it's self-destructive, the fact that we're doing it to ourselves gives us a locus of control? Could it be? I don't know. That's where I'd love to hear your opinions on this. It seems to me that one of the things that we have to do to be careful about self-destructive behaviors, the first question that I want to put out here for this segment is, I'd like you to think about the week you've had right now, and maybe even the day you've had today, and I'll do the exercise with you, which is, how many things today did you do that you could qualify as acts of self-love? And how many things did you do that could be considered acts of self-hatred? So let me give examples. So I went for a walk outside. I think that would fall into a self-love category. Internal dialogue, sometimes critical, self-hatred category. What about you? What are you doing in a given day? I think that the moment we can acknowledge our behaviors as being either self-love or self-hatred, we have the option to change them. But we have to first acknowledge whether they're self-love or self-hatred. So I guess eating too much, drinking too much time on the internet, maybe, it's that time of year, maybe even binging on Netflix, although really fun, can end up being very self-destructive because you end up feeling pretty down after you watch too much TV. And again, I love TV, so don't misunderstand me. But there's things we can do to excess. So I guess the first question we have to ask ourselves is, if it is an act of self-hatred, and I'm submitting to you that doing things that are going to hurt you, whether we like this or not, are acts of self-hatred. So if we're doing an act of self-hatred, so my favorite examples I usually give is, I always give the example of eating brownies. I don't actually eat brownies anymore, but I sure used to. So let's imagine that every day I decided to make a plate full of brownies and eat them up, which could feel very loving in a way because they taste good. But I think we all know that would be an act of self-hatred because it's not healthy and I'd be eating too many sweets and I'd probably feel really lousy and lethargic after. Now, step one is I got to acknowledge whether it's an act of self-hatred. So let's say I do acknowledge, okay, it's an act of self-hatred. Well, the reason that strategy works so well is that then I got to ask myself, do I want to do acts of self-hatred towards me? And then comes up a very, very big psychological question. Why do I want to do acts of self-hatred towards me? So this is the thing. That's a hard question to ask, and it's a very hard question to answer. Why would someone ever want to do acts of self-hatred towards themselves? Well, we could hypothesize that maybe sometimes we're not feeling very good about ourselves and we want to pay. We want to pay. Maybe we haven't asserted ourselves enough in a relationship that we needed to assert ourselves in. Maybe we weren't true to our value system. Maybe we're not happy with the way we're managing our lives. So doing an act of self-hatred is a good way at punishing yourself. But of course, it never looks like that because you're eating the brownies or you're watching TV or you're having that, third cocktail. It doesn't look like you're hating yourself. But I guess one of the reasons I thought it was such a good idea to do this show is it is hating yourself. Because you're not doing things that are going to fuel you. You're doing things that are going to hurt you. So we have to also work on the concept of honesty. Now, many of you listening right now might be saying, what's wrong with having a drink? What's wrong with having a brownie? What's wrong with watching Netflix? I agree. There's nothing wrong with these things if they're not going in excess. And you know the truth. Have you been avoiding things in your life? Have you been avoiding taking care of things? What's that all about? What's going on? So, again, self-destructive behavior is quite complex. We know that through research, we know that self-destructive behavior brings a host of emotions: fear, feeling out of control, guilt, and even shame. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Georgia Dow has arrived, and we definitely want to get her feedback on this. We know those feelings come up for people, feeling that you're feeling fear and you're feeling out of control, you're feeling guilty, you're feeling shameful. Why would you do a self-destructive behavior at that point? Well, it numbs you. It just numbs you. Okay, I'm going to pause that thought. I'm going to welcome Georgia to the show. Georgia, Happy New Year. We haven't seen you here since the New Year.
That is true.
Happy New Year. It's absolutely great to see you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for showing up for Straight Talk. I appreciate it. And I'm very interested to hear what you have to say. You've just come from the office. You've seen probably 8-9 clients today. How many of those clients partook in self-destructive behaviors?
Well,
honestly.
First I want to say, I think that this is a wonderful topic. I'm so happy that you are bringing this up because rarely do people even know what their self-destructive behavior is. No one's going to say, you know what, today I'm going to try to ruin my life.
That's what I was saying. It's, we're not honest.
We don't deal with that.
Right.
We lie to ourselves.
That's what I said.
And
you came right at the time.
It's such an important topic to help people get that I can do better, and I have to be a little bit more honest with what am I doing. If I'm stabbing myself in the foot, at least I can say, you know what, I'm stabbing myself in the foot.
Well, I agree with you. And the topic, I wish I could take credit, but it came from a listener, and she's struggling with this. And I said the same thing. I said step one is you have to ask yourself if the behavior you did was self-love or self-hatred. You have to be honest with yourself.
Yes.
It feels like self-love to give me brownies, but it's not self-love. It's self-hatred.
Right. Or that might be one brownie,
not
one
12
brownies,
exactly.
Right? Like there's a point where you're like, okay, now I'm no longer even enjoying this brownie, yet I am still eating. What is happening?
So why do people fall? Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I didn't even answer your question that you'd asked me. I apologize, but I was so excited when I looked at the topic.
So happy to have you here.
Such an important topic. And I would say like really like I think a lot of people that are not even like just people I know engage in self-destructive behavior. I don't even know if all of us do. Even if I think to myself, every once in a while I'm like, playing Candy Crush instead of doing like my taxes or something that I have to get done. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing? This is not helpful to me. I have to do the tax. At some point, they come and get you if you don't do the taxes. That's what I hear.
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
Yeah, I heard that. So, I think that we all do.
I do. I think we all do it. I think in a given day, we can always isolate things that we did that weren't with love. So my question was, how many clients today would you say talked about behaviors that you felt were self-destructive? I'm just curious in a given day.
I would say, well, today I think I saw 9 people, and I would say 4, 5, some of them dealt with other issues of that they were dealing with that we didn't cover those topics to that. But I think that most people deal with this all the time.
Why is it so seductive to do self-destructive behaviors? Like, why do people, like the person who approached me about doing this show, she found herself doing self-destructive behaviors and she knew she was doing self-destructive behaviors, but she was doing them anyways.
Right.
Why?
Well, I think that one is that we are hedonistic by nature and we think about the now and not the later. So often today me screws over tomorrow me.
Okay.
They say it
I like that expression. Right? Today me screws over tomorrow me.
Yes, so I pay the price later, but we have such short...
I missed you, Georgia Dow, and your Georgia-isms. That was great. I like that.
But I think it's very true, is that we don't think about how tomorrow me is going to feel about something, and so we give it always to tomorrow me.
Okay.
But then tomorrow me shows up and says, what the hell? Why did you do this to me? And now I'm having to suffer, pay a price that happened to me before that. And so because of that need to avoid, so I think a lot of it is through avoidance of distress or uncomfortable feelings or things that we don't enjoy, that we're doing things that will really make us pay a price later to that.
Well, there's an avoidance factor, and like your Candy Crush to the taxes, I get that. But how about if there's no taxes, but yet you find yourself playing too many video games or too much Netflix or drinking that third cocktail every night?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Well, there's probably so many. Like there's probably probably 8 to 10 different reasons of where it is. It could be that a lack of self-love. So sometimes we're not taking care of ourselves. We're not listening to ourselves.
That's really actually part of where I want to go is what do you mean?
Well, I think that we often are maybe unconsciously angry or upset at ourselves. Yeah. Or even more dangerous is we could be angry or upset at someone else and now we're punishing ourselves to get to them.
Does that happen?
Right? Ooh, I see that a lot. I see that a lot in parent-child relationships or teenagers and parent relationships or couple relationships where one is unconsciously or consciously angry at another person and so they're going to take it out on themselves. And a lot of people that are caretakers are too worried about confrontation or making someone else uncomfortable. And so because they have no outlet, they end up engaging in a lot of self-destructive behaviors to deal with it.
So are you saying that if I'm angry at someone in my life and I'm not dealing with it, I might actually start doing self-destructive behaviors?
Yeah.
Is my hope unconsciously that they'll notice and come rescue me?
Yeah. Perfect, Sandra. That's really spoken like a wonderful therapist. Yes. That they'll notice, that they'll ask what's wrong, that they'll change it, that they'll care, that they'll see me, that they'll validate me.
They may even change their behavior because
I think that's
never going to happen.
But it's not the right reason to have. No, it's not going to work out that way. But I think that a lot of times it's from a place of pain. It's not from a place of happiness. We don't do this as from a place of happiness.
So, and the bottom line, and it comes up all the time on the show, is that pain is a part of life. So what are we supposed to do with our pain? I mean, numbing it with alcohol or drugs or Candy Crush or brownies or Netflix seems like very common. Yeah. So what else can I do with my pain? Like from a therapeutic standpoint, what is the advice?
Well, coming from therapists, if you have someone that you can speak to or talk about it or confront it or deal with it, and there's, everyone has their own way. So, coming from therapists, I'm biased, and I think that speaking with someone that you trust or going to seek therapy are wonderful ways to be able to deal with pain and hurt, but also speaking to the person that you might be hurt with, or even journaling, exercise, taking care of yourself. Listening to, sometimes we don't even know, just listening to your own needs. Because some people will say to you, right? How many people have said to you, I don't even know what I want. I don't even know why I'm doing this. Because they haven't bothered to look that deeply. So they're completely unaware of even where these things come from. And sometimes they come from very specific places.
That's really well stated. I think that sometimes, from what I've heard from people, is sometimes if they feel that they don't have a voice, or if they are going to say something to their partner or somebody and it's not going to be heard, what are they supposed to do then?
That's a very good statement to that. Say that again.
If they don't have a voice and they feel like they can't say what they need to say to their partner, their child, or whoever, what are they to do? So they turn it on themselves. But what are they to do if they can't speak?
I love that. I'm sorry, I'm cold and touching you, but you're nice and warm.
Yeah,
so,
probably for the wrong reasons. I'm feeling under the weather today.
Okay, stop touching now. There we go. But no, I think
I'd give you a warning.
But
this is live radio, people.
Live radio. I think that that's very true. I think that it is a very difficult point that the person that you are hurt about will not hear it or won't give you the answer that you need or hope for, or maybe even they've passed away and they're not there.
Oh boy.
You know, or they moved away, or it's an ex that's gone on, and you want to send that letter, send that text. You don't actually need someone else to make you feel better. That's an internal process. It's nice if you have someone that will listen and care, but it's not necessary, right? I know that you do some exercises for people that may not have someone that they can talk to, or might have gone through something that they know that they're not going to deal with. And what are some of the things that you give? There's some that you need to usually do with a therapist.
Yeah. Well, it's such a good point that you're saying and it brings up the fact that you don't need, such an important point, you don't need the person to be there. I mean, I like writing a letter that you're not going to send.
Yes. Say that again.
I like writing a letter you're not going to send.
Yes, because if you're hoping for a reply that's going to be beneficial, you may not get that, and that can cause more damage. But writing it itself, why? Now, a lot of people say this to me, so I'll ask the question that all of my clients ask me is, I can think it in my head, why write down a bloody letter? That takes so much time, Georgia. I don't want to write it. I don't want to go through that. Why can't I just think it?
It's a great question, and it's a cliffhanger. We're going to take a break, and I will answer that question when we come back on Straight Talk with Sandra Reish.
Your life, your health, your network. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
Spa Munari is a full-service wellness day spa located at the heart of West Island, Quebec. Submerge yourself in beauty with one of our many treatments, specially catered to your needs. We offer facials, manicures, pedicures, hair removal, massages, body treatments, and so much more. Enjoy our ultimate relaxation experience with our spa packages. We offer a men's menu as well. Call us today to book your next appointment at 514-695-5040 or visit us on the web at spamunari.com. That's 514-695-5040 or spamunari.com.
Join the therapist who is affectionately known as the Couple Whisperer, Sandra Reish, on her famous couple retreats, and change your life forever. Sandra offers couple retreats in beautiful locations several times a year that can radically change your love life. Couples describe her retreats as life-changing. Regain that loving feeling, bring your intimacy to a new level, and rediscover excitement and joy. Find out more at helpforanxietydepression.com or call 514-796-4357. We all want love and safety. Now you can have it. Call 514-796-4357 or helpforanxietydepression.com.
Change your life forever with the latest cutting-edge products for home study treatment for anxiety, featuring the clinical director of the Montreal Center for Anxiety and Depression and host of Straight Talk, Sandra Reish. Sandra is joined by top therapist Georgia Dow in this revolutionary anxiety videos therapy series. Thousands of people have benefited from this scientifically proven treatment approach. Isn't it time you chose yourself? Visit anxiety-videos.com right now. That's anxiety-videos.com and change your life forever.
A fresh look at today's health. Voice America Health and Wellness.
You are listening to Straight Talk with Sandra Reish. To connect with the program today, please call 1-866-472-5792. Again, that's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email to info@helpforanxietydepression.com. Now, back to Straight Talk. Here's Sandra Reich.
So we're back, and Georgia, right before the break, was asking me the question about writing a letter. Why would it make a difference to write a letter as opposed to just saying in your mind, oh my God, Georgia, it makes a huge difference. Have you ever done it?
I have.
Okay.
It's interesting because the first time that I really journaled, like I did, you have to do it for school when you're becoming a therapist and other things. But I remember once I was thinking through something in my head and it was really bothering me. Yet when I wrote it out, not only did I feel better and come to a solution, but I was able to go back to sleep. And it is a really big difference between writing and thinking. And often we think that we're able to think our way out of it, but often we think our way more into more stress than out of it.
Yeah. So so you found it worked for you.
It did.
I find it's worked for me.
Yes.
So there's something about writing it down that's very powerful.
Yes.
It's funny, when you write the letter, it almost feels like you did send it.
You know what? You're writing something down. It's in your own hand. You're then having to read it. And the writing is forcing, so the limbic system is that part that's very emotional. And often when we're going through cycling thoughts, it's all limbic system, which is your anxiety system. And you're just revving through all of those thoughts. The act of physically writing it and thinking about how to form your letters and dealing with it is forcing the analytical part of your brain to be part of the process. And it's slow. And that also allows you to feel validated. You're reading this, your own pain in words, and that makes you feel like, oh, I get it. And that often makes you feel better because you're able to look at this more analytically than limbically. Limbically, you often dig yourself in deeper. And analytically, you go, you know what? As I look at this, it's not as bad as what I thought it was.
Right.
And that feeling is validating, soothing, and often it also kind of allows you to get to a better solution.
Yeah. So actually, writing something to someone who can't listen to you would help you to work through it as opposed to doing a self-destructive behavior.
Yes. Yes.
Do you think that, these are leading questions a bit because I think I know the answer. Do you think that once someone spirals into self-destructive behaviors, it's like a slippery slope that you keep going? Like, it's almost like the famous diet example. Like, I took this much of ice cream. What the heck? I'll just
Might
eat
as
the
well
whole
eat all of
tub.
it. Yeah.
Right. So what's that all about? Because it's not really very logical.
No, but usually these are things that feel good for the time being. And they might have even worked at the beginning, right? Like if you're using alcohol, you're not thinking about something else. You might even feel good at first. And then at a certain point in time, that it no longer feels good, but it had at one point maybe worked a little bit. You had that sugar rush and it felt a little bit better. And while you were eating, you weren't worrying. And so that felt kind of good. And then you continue in hopes that you will get back to where it once was, even though it doesn't feel that way anymore.
Right.
And I think that also when we start to go through acts of self-hatred, now I'm angry at myself and now I'm going to do it again because I'm upset. So sometimes we do it also for punishment, that we're going to do this to hurt ourselves. And then there's also addictive.
Yeah, I think that's the next area I want to go to is the addictive nature of this.
Right.
So it is addictive. It's interesting because often people in relationships with people with addiction can find themselves doing addictive behavior. Isn't that kind of interesting?
That is really interesting.
Ooh, I think we hit upon something there.
Yes. Well, why do you think that can often happen to that?
I never thought of it before, but now that I think about it, I very much, Georgia, submit to the belief that your partner is a reflection of you. And I know people listening, including me right now, are like outraged, like, what? My partner is nothing like me. Okay. But you see, we have to get really to be a detective because your partner are hidden and lost parts of yourself. So your partner is really easygoing and you're very type A. You go, I'm nothing like that. I'm not easygoing. Well, there's a part of you that was easygoing and you let it go and you went into a type A and now you're resentful towards them for being easygoing. Yeah. So it seems to me that what we just hit upon is addicts would be drawn to addicts.
Yes. And sometimes it's also communal. Right? Like we do this, like this is something that we share together. I've had lots of my clients say, but this is when we relax and we bond through the alcohol or through the drugs or through that. And so this is something that we do as our social thing instead of, exercising or doing something else. The same thing can happen a lot of people that smoke say, but that's when I go outside and I talk with other people. So I don't want to
Right.
stop that, because that's my break of being able to leave and chat with others. I bond during that time, which is also really interesting, because you're now like a partner that can pull you out, and sometimes a partner can pull you back because they may not even, and we can talk about this too, right, is that they may not want you to stop. Right?
Oh.
Right?
Ooh.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes.
What do you mean?
Well, they may not want you to stop, one, because then they lose their drinking partner or their eating partner or
dear.
their smoking partner. And two, you get healthy and I might be left without a partner.
Oh, so we've entered a whole new hemisphere here. So if I start to do acts of self-love instead of acts of self-hatred, now what we arrived at is my partner might get nervous because
Yeah.
I'm getting healthy. And if I get healthy, even if the partner's shutting me down, I may realize this is not acceptable and this is not good enough for me.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of what you're getting at is it's almost like maybe if you can't beat them, you join them. So if you're with someone self-destructive, you either find your way to involvement or back into self-destructiveness with them.
I like that.
It's like
I like that.
It reminds me a little bit. I was a bartender for many years.
Yes.
And I don't love alcohol, but I drank alcohol a lot in those days. And the reason why is if you're with a lot of drunk people,
Yeah.
you kind of need to have some alcohol in you.
Right.
I know
Not
this
it's
is
a
sounding
very-
really bad,
But if not, it's a very dry, long day.
and they're very annoying.
Right.
Drinkers can be
So
really annoying.
So you were drinking as a way of just preservation.
That's right.
Self-preservation.
But I think it's a great example.
Yes.
It's like you kind of
Yes.
have to, if you can't beat them, join them.
Mhm.
So you join into something and you can get yourself into trouble. Luckily, I never had a real propensity for alcohol,
Yeah.
but that could have gotten me in trouble too.
It could have if you did have a propensity for
Exactly.
alcohol, right?
Exactly.
Yes, for
Yeah.
sure. And I think that sometimes people say is that, they love me with the beer glasses on, but they may not when their beer glasses are off.
Oh God. That's so true. Excuse
so,
me. That's so
they may
true.
also be worried about what would, sober this person think of me. Or maybe I don't like me, and so I don't want you to really see the real me. And I think that sometimes we hide behind addictions. Sometimes self-destructive behavior is an excuse. I have this alcohol problem, so I can't get this job, or I can't go for that raise, or I
Oof.
can't get healthy. So sometimes we might even use it as a crutch.
So what you're really getting at is like it's fear-based. It's always fear-based.
I like that, yeah.
Yeah, it must
Yeah.
be fear-based then.
Yeah.
So as long as I have this problem, I can't take care of this other thing in my life. So
That's even a different one. Say that one again, because that's
as long
very
as
true.
I have this problem, I
Yes.
can't take care of this thing in my life.
I
all-
think that is so well said.
You know what? I think we're arriving at some new things. So kind of new theory, self-destructive behavior lets you off the hook.
Yes, and I actually have cases of people that are dealing with a certain anxiety, and they're doing the work, but they're not getting better, and we've gotten to the point where I believe that it's because the marriage is in trouble, and they don't want to have to deal with the marriage being in trouble, so then we can focus on this anxiety. And without the anxiety, it's like that third person, right? Without the anxiety, then we're gonna have to deal with the marriage, and I don't want to. So
Okay,
I'm
so
keeping the
we have
anxiety.
to, so this time you have to repeat that again. So because now we're on another thing that people are very interested in. So you're saying anxiety can serve a function to not dealing with your marriage?
I believe that, or dealing with another problem, I would say even more generally, that sometimes we use self-destructive behavior in order to avoid having to deal with a problem that we really need to deal with, the underlying problem that is something else. And maybe it's even a problem with yourself that you're using this to mask.
So the anxiety is it's the excuse.
It's the masking event that we can focus all our energy on instead of dealing with the thing that we really don't want to look at.
So I can't help it, but I can't help but slip into this. Reminds me also, as you know, we see a lot of children. Sadly, we see a lot of children in the clinic, and you and I are very much of the belief that we work with the parents, not the child. I can't help but feel that this is very similar, that if my child has a problem, then I don't have to deal with my breaking up marriage. So the child
Yes.
unconsciously plays out a problem. Do we not see that all the time?
All the time.
So isn't that sort of like, if we bring it back to the show topic, it's the self-destructive behavior is not dealing with the problem in your marriage. You bring your child into your bed because they're anxious, for example, and it becomes a slippery slope. Child gets worse and worse. Marriage doesn't get dealt with. So you can even use your children unconsciously, no one intends to, as self-destructive behavior. And the child will pay the price too.
And the child will pay the price.
How often do you
to
see
it.
that, honestly? Like, that's a big one.
It's a very, very common one. A lot of times I see someone come into the clinic and they're not the one that are dealing with the problem. And it's
What do you
really
mean?
hard. They don't have the issue. The issue is the family or the marriage or the interrelationship in between. And, you know, they've made someone the patient X that fix them, when it really is a whole systemic issue that's not being dealt with. And I think that we use sometimes self-destructive behavior as an excuse to be able to get out of really coping. And again, it's not because you don't want to. I think that we unconsciously don't want to deal with it because it's too painful or too upsetting, or, you know, I don't want to deal with the fact that I'm abusive or I have an alcohol problem, or we're using other things to be able to not deal with other pains that we have, but it comes from anxiety and pain, like you said.
So, yeah. So how do you, I have another question after this one, but let's just start with, how do you, when you meet a client, let's say parents, for example, or a family, how do you figure out what's really going on? How do you do your work, Georgia?
I think that part of it is intuitive. So I'm not really sure how I do it, but you can always, like, after a while, you can tell that there's something that doesn't match up. It doesn't make sense. Like, they're like 1 + 2 = 5. And you're like, there's pieces to this that aren't. And so often through interplay of how does everyone interact with each other, or is there one topic that people are constantly avoiding, you know, or just knowing that, you know, that someone comes in. This is a common one. I think that you're the one that said that, you know, if someone constantly comes in with the same problem and does not want to actually fix it, there must be something else there.
Okay. So
What about for you, by the way? Are there any other things that could be, you know?
I think you said it very well. I think it is a bit intuitive. When things don't add up, they don't add up. Like, for me, when I see a child in a lot of trouble, I'm immediately curious about the environment. I'm wondering what's going on, because my experience has led me to believe that there's children often play out what parents need them to play out. And that's a very harsh thing to explain to a parent, because no parent wants to set up their child.
Right.
But children will just play out whatever you want them to. And this is heavy stuff. Like, this is deep psychological stuff. And I think that it's okay if you've fallen into that trap. It's a very easy trap to fall into.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious by nature. That's my personality. So I ask a lot of questions. And that brings us to coping mechanisms. I've given the first strategy, and I want you to add on to it. The first strategy for me is ask yourself questions. So when you do behaviors, is this an act of self-love? Is this an act of self-hatred? If I'm doing acts of self-hatred, something's up. So if you find out that you are self-destructive in some way, what can you do?
Well, I think that it's a wonderful thing if you are at the point of your life that you can even ask yourself a question, because I think that a lot of people cannot even be curious enough because they don't want to know the answer. And so if you can already do that, you are ahead of the game. That is a wonderful thing to be able to say, maybe I'm doing something. Very few people can do that. That takes a lot of strength, a lot of courage, and a lot of ego strength.
Yeah.
Because it hurts when we're making a mistake when our loved ones deal with it. So that would be the first thing, is that you ask that question, as you said, and give an honest answer. So say that we found out I say I love my kids, but I'm spending all my time on my iPad or on my computer and not with my children, and they're needing for attention. We figured out, I think that maybe it's me not giving them enough attention. What would be the next step for people after they say, you know what, I'm drinking too much, or I'm, eating instead of talking to my partner? What would be the next step that they can do once, because that's a big step. Like, that's actually a really hard step.
Yeah.
Like, you might even have to journal out what's happening. And again, journal it out, so that analytical part of you, because thinking it, you're using your limbic system, and writing it, your analytical part of your brain, the cognitive center that we're so proud of, is now engaged in problem solving. And you need that. Writing it down, it's hard to say, I didn't write that, or I didn't say that. The limbic system, it's like a 3-year-old. Like, it'll be like, yeah, I forgot about that. No, I didn't really say it that way.
Right.
Once you've written it on paper, it's hard to avoid that I wrote this on paper.
Yeah.
And so you get closer to the truth. So I would say write out what's happening.
Yeah.
To get to that point of being like, ooh, because once you've gotten to, I'm drinking too much, or I'm not talking to my partner, the rest is kind of easy, no? Like, not easy, but it's
easier.
Straightforward.
Yeah.
Right? So I'd gotten to that point. what would be the next step for someone?
Well, for me, I think I'd be really curious, or I'd want them to ask about pain. Because if you're drinking or watching TV,
I love this.
There's pain.
Yes.
So then you have to ask, what's the pain?
Oh, I love that. I love that. You know, I love that because it's not a judgmental response.
Yeah, no judgments.
That is a loving response. Yeah. And I think that we often are avoiding looking at what's really wrong because we're worried about our own self-judgment, not even others, but our own self-judgment to that. And you just went to such a loving place. What is the pain?
What's the pain?
And it's such a true statement. I love that. That's a beautiful first
Thank you.
step.
For people listening, I think that would be really good right now to take a moment and think about what's the pain in your life. And that's a big question.
I love that.
We have pains in our life. And
we do.
And then, maybe once you isolate the pain, what can you do about the pain?
Oh, yeah. I love that. I love that. It's hard though, because sometimes what if, I'm thinking of people who I see who might be listening and they may say, well, I know what the pain is, but I don't think there's anything that can be done other than walking out on the marriage, let's say. And they don't want to walk out on the marriage. I have clients of mine listening to this show who are having that thought right now. Well, I think that the first thing that you need to do is, both people, especially if you're a partner, need to have a really honest discussion with themselves and write down where are their pains and why. Because again, we all have wounds. We all have hurts that we've gone through, which are about us. And if you can reflect on it and really deal with it and say, you know what, if the risk is this marriage could end. You want to say, you know what, if I don't work on this, what have I wished in 5 years that I had? And when you can look at it that way, then you can say, is this something that I'm willing to do the work that I have to get myself to the place I need to be? Or am I not? And just honestly, because again, we are all in different stages of our life, but you want to say to yourself, you know what can I do to be able to make this different? And hopefully if your partner is willing to say the same thing, now we have things that we can work on.
So I guess we have to be careful of the powerlessness of trying to do it yourself. Relationships are a two-person dance.
They are, and one person cannot carry the load all the time.
Right.
They just can't.
Right. So you would arrive at the fact that this is something the two of you need to talk about, but if your partner's not willing to work on it, and that's what people are afraid of, what then?
Well, then you have to have a very serious talk.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people don't really believe that this is, where I am at and this is what I need to have or not. You need to have that talk. And often people will say to me, no, I know. But it's one of those things that they say, you know what, I think that they already know, but they don't really know. You have to be exactly specific. And for men, often that might be even in writing. Because they might process that better, but in a language that they can understand and in steps that are achievable. If you need A, B, C, and D, you need to write down.
Oh, I love that.
How do they achieve A, B, C, and D, and write it down.
Oh, this is good stuff.
Women are intuitive. Men are non-intuitive. Now, this is a very general statement, and not all men are non-intuitive.
Yeah,
not all women are
some
intuitive.
Complaints.
Of course, but that's not true. But by and large, our societies were divvied up upon that. And so what you want to do is you want to be able to say, this is what it is, and these are the things I need, and break it down like little tiny IKEA steps.
Okay, well, this is so important that when we come back from the break, is you're very good at these IKEA steps, as you call it. I'm breaking it down. I remember you telling me examples of that. So when we come back, can you give some examples of how people can do that?
I definitely can.
Okay, we'll be right back on Straight Talk with Sandra Reish.
Opinions, options, answers. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
Join the therapist who is affectionately known as the Couple Whisperer, Sandra Reish, on her famous couple retreats and change your life forever. Sandra offers couple retreats in beautiful locations several times a year that can radically change your love life. Couples describe her retreats as life-changing. Regain that loving feeling, bring your intimacy to a new level, and rediscover excitement and joy. Find out more at helpforanxietydepression.com or call 514-796-4357. We all want love and safety. Now you can have it. Call 514-796-4357 or helpforanxietydepression.com.
Spa Munari is a full-service wellness day spa located at the heart of West Island, Quebec. Submerge yourself in beauty with one of our many treatments, specially catered to your needs. We offer facials, manicures, pedicures, hair removal, massages, body treatments, and so much more. Enjoy our ultimate relaxation experience with our spa packages. We offer a men's menu as well. Call us today to book your next appointment at 514-695-5040 or visit us on the web at spamunari.com. That's 514-695-5040 or spamunari.com.
Change your life forever with the latest cutting-edge products for home study treatment for anxiety, featuring the clinical director of the Montreal Center for Anxiety and Depression and host of Straight Talk, Sandra Reish. Sandra is joined by top therapist Georgia Dow in this revolutionary anxiety videos therapy series. Thousands of people have benefited from this scientifically proven treatment approach. Isn't it time you chose yourself? Visit anxiety-videos.com right now. That's anxiety-videos.com and change your life forever.
Your life, your health, your network. Voice America Health and Wellness.
You are listening to Straight Talk with Sandra Reish. To connect with the program today, please call 1-866-472-5792. Again, that's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email to info@helpforanxietydepression.com. Now, back to Straight Talk. Here's Sandra Reish.
We're back on Straight Talk with Sandra Reish, and when we When we took our break, we were talking about Georgia's famous steps in marriage. I didn't know that we were going to end up in marriage, but it's true. We've arrived at the fact that often self-destructive behavior does come for many reasons, but definitely if things are difficult in your marriage, that's definitely a big one. So you were talking about breaking down things for men. Mm-hmm. And you said, women. Yeah, you said it's a generalization, but you did say that men often, and I have found that in my own marriage, that it's not as clear. So women have a tendency of feeling like it should be clear. Yeah. It's not that clear. So what do you mean about steps? What do you mean?
So say that you need something. I need you to ask me about, I want, someone to ask me about my day, to spend time listening to me, or to make sure that when they say that they've done something, that it gets done, and give me a timeline. This is something that for a lot of women, and again, I'm stereotyping, but it could be the other way around. So if you are the person that you find that your wife is doing this, then this would be the same steps to that. So what you do is that you give specifics written down that will remind someone, and you put it in a place that is a public place where they will see all the time. Because if they say, ask me about my day, listen, ask me a question about what I've said, turn off the TV when I come into the room. Often the things that hurt us are not things that are that difficult to change if the person would be constantly reminded, but we feel like a broken record because we're always reminding. This, and you'd say, a lot of people say to me at the beginning, wow, Georgia, this sounds really stupid that I have to do this. And
I was going to say, people are going to say that.
There's something wrong with marriage if I have to remind them constantly and be able to deal with that. But often people, period, need reminders about things. And so I remember I did this with my husband, and I put him down because whenever I would get sick, he would forget what I would take care of him when he was sick. I thought pretty well, maybe not as much anymore, but I thought pretty well, and he wouldn't do the same thing for me. And that made me feel unloved, which hurt me. And so what I did was I printed out what to do when I'm sick. Ask me how I'm feeling, bring me a tea, ask if I want a blanket, see if I need a bath, make me a soup, take my temperature, bring me my medication. I just wrote it down, a list of that, not even in any order. And I put it on the fridge. The first time that I was sick after that, and it felt stupid when I put it down, I understand that.
He was open to it, though.
He was open to it, and you want them to be open to it. This is not to undermine, this is not to mock.
Right.
this is the things that make me feel good. And you can do the same thing for your partner.
Yeah.
They can do that too. He could write down what he needs from me, right? Maybe it'll be on time. And if I say I'm going to be at this time back home, be on this time back home. Like there's a give and take to this.
Right.
And the first time I got sick, it was on the fridge, right? So he suddenly says, do you want to, he brought me a pillow without me asking. But I didn't ask. It was on the fridge, but I felt so loved.
Yeah.
I was just like, and then he's like, do you want a tea? And I'm like, yeah. And then I said, like, I think it said, like, just make me a tea, don't ask. And I was so touched. I felt so loved and cared about, even though it was on the board. But when you're learning a new skill, and that's what you're doing, often the skill, to the best way to learn it, would have it broken down in somewhere where someone can remind if they forget how to do the skill properly. And what we're doing is teaching someone a new skill, because if your family of origin didn't listen or didn't care, or maybe my family of origin, when you were upset, would ignore you, but in your family of origin, it was to give attention to, I might think that I'm being kind to you by ignoring you, and that makes you feel very hurt. So I also might not be from a misunderstanding or from my own wounds. Rarely does anyone go into a marriage wanting to destroy it or sabotage it or use self-destructive behavior.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's more unconscious, even though the person says it can't be unconscious.
Right.
And so this kind of helps us jump out of our dance.
So you're really talking about teaching people how to treat us. Really, really teaching people how to
really in little
there
tiny
you have
steps.
It. There you have it for the therapist. And I think that every day in our practice, we have to teach people that it's completely normal and acceptable to ask for very specific behaviors. I think you said it so well, is that because I'm married to someone for sure who would think leaving me alone when I'm stressed or sick would be a very loving thing to do. And for me, it's the worst possible thing you can do.
Yes.
But now I know that's what he wants.
Yes.
So I leave him alone.
Yes.
Just don't leave me alone.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Well, you and I have done the same thing.
Right.
So when I go through trauma, I say, usually I want to be in my cave.
Yes,
right?
you do.
And you said, usually when you're in trauma. But we had this spoken thing about it so that we knew how to treat each other.
Yeah, it's true.
Without that, I could have felt overwhelmed, or you could have felt abandoned.
Yeah.
And because we had this conversation,
Communication.
I went through something like difficult recently, and you would send me a little message saying, I'm going to send you a message a day. If it's too much, don't worry about it.
Right.
If you need it, I'm here. And it was perfect.
Yeah,
it was
I'm
perfect.
glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear it.
But that's what's so nice, if you can actually speak it and you're relearning how to do something. And so it might seem very obvious, oh my God, but everyone should know to do this when this is. But that's not, everyone doesn't play by the same rule book. And so you're retraining someone, how do I need to be loved and feel cared about and secure? And often people will say, well, I just told them to be loving to me. And I always ask my clients, what does that mean? Because be loving to me in the way I say it will be different than be loving to me is the way that you say it.
Right.
We all experience love, safety, comfort in totally different ways. So whenever someone tells me I had a good day, I have to ask, what does good mean to you?
Yeah.
Because I can't interpret it through my eyes.
No.
It's not going to be accurate.
Right.
And so if you say to someone, I want you to respect me, or if I want you to be, responsible, I don't know that that means to pay the bills right away on the date, because that might not be what responsible, maybe paying the bills at all was responsible in my family. And so you want to say the specifics to that, because often we think we have been very clear, but maybe the other person was too flooded or too upset to even hear it. But having it written down, when I'm calm, I can go back and I can do it. And that's the nice thing. It's a gift. It's really a gift.
So communication, finding out the feelings, telling yourself the truth, these are the ways out. If someone's listening today and they are still finding that they can't stop their self-destructive behaviors, what should they do?
Well, I think that what you want to do is you want to say first, do you want to get rid of the self-destructive behaviors? That is the first thing. Sometimes you really don't. And that's why you might not be really looking at what it is. Do you really want to change? Because change is going to come at a cost. You don't get it all. This is if you're drinking because you want to avoid thinking of something that's negative in your head. Well, stopping drinking means you have to avoid that. And so if you're not stopping something that is self-destructive or damaging, you need to ask yourself really honestly, do you want to? Because you might not.
Right.
If you do want to, maybe you don't know how to get out. Or maybe you're too hurt, and that's your habit to it.
How do you make sense of the fact that, our intellectual part of our brain will not be happy to find out that we want to do something self-destructive? So how do you make sense of it that, I'm tempted to suggest a compassionate response that maybe I'm not ready to give up that self-destructive behavior just yet. It's serving a function and I'm not ready yet. But what's your opinion on how do you make sense of being self-destructive if you're not willing to make those changes?
It's a hard thing to do because it's a sense of loss. I'm not strong enough, or I'm not ready yet. And I think that for a lot of people, the reason that they don't even look at self-destructive behaviors is because their ego strength, their own self-esteem may not be high enough or strong enough to even look at that. And I think that a lot of times, especially when I deal with teenagers with parents, because your job is to help your teen or partners, it will break them to be able to say that they have done this wrong. And that's the way out, but it's also, they might not have a strong enough ego. Their self-esteem may be too low to be able to pay the price that they would have to pay. So it's almost like a game of poker. They may not have enough chips to play this game yet.
Right.
And
well
so
said.
They need to work on building up their own self-esteem and feeling of empowerment to be able to make that jump. And if we can do that, then they have enough chips to play the game.
So that's where seeing a professional might be helpful.
Yes.
Or, working with somebody.
Or even like working out and learning a new skill and bettering yourself. Like, you need to do something to make yourself stronger. It takes a lot of courage. And it's a hard thing to be able to look at, especially if the person that's most important with you is being damaged by you, or that you might lose that. It can be really hard. I think that often what happens in couples and with children and parents, they're so angry that they say they're doing this on purpose to hurt me, and they become vindictive, when really the other person's probably in a lot of pain and probably not strong enough to be able to even do it. And it's a hard thing to see when for you it might be very obvious and the steps are right there in front of you, but they may not have the strength to be able to take those steps. And so, if you can be compassionate enough to be able to help support them in building the strength to be able to do it.
But with boundaries.
Always with boundaries. And there's also always an end point to that,
too,
of how
because
you
you're
can't
going to
do
fall
this
into
forever.
caretaking. Yeah.
But again, that's the way that they can get out. So you need to build up yourself. You need to get the courage and be able to be strong enough. And if you're not exercising or eating well or sleeping, like, those are the building blocks. You're not going to be able to do much, right?
Sleep, exercise.
Yeah. And so in a lot of self-destructive behaviors, wreck your food, your sleep, your exercise, or maybe under-exercise, could be even over-exercise. Self-destructive behaviors can even look really good on the outside.
Yeah.
I'm eating really healthy. And then we find out that healthy means I'm starving myself to death.
Oh, God, yeah. Really great points, Georgia. I really think you brought the self-destructive topic home. So there is hope, right? There's hope.
Always hope.
There's hope to get out of this. And again, there's being honest with yourself is probably the biggest strategy we talked about today.
Yes,
right?
I love that one.
Tell yourself the truth.
Yes, and you had that other one that I think that you should repeat again, is when you found out what your self-destructive behavior is, instead of kicking yourself,
you
are loving to yourself and know that, yes, pain.
That I'm in pain.
And ask yourself,
what's the pain?
Beautiful. I love that.
What's the pain?
I love that.
Yeah.
I think that is like the key. Is that one.
What's
I
the
love
pain?
That. Yeah.
Okay. So, it is January. It's 2018. We're just coming off of the holiday season. I started the show by talking, Georgia, about how people join gyms and start off strong, and then they start to, fall off a little bit. It's normal. At this part in the world, we don't get a lot of sun. We see a lot of seasonal affective disorder, people being down. So, we want to get people back started on healthy behaviors, learning those boundaries and consequences, which, by the way, we have a DVD on boundaries and consequences.
We do. It's pretty good.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Where would they find that DVD?
You can look online. It's anxiety-videos.com.
And if they want to reach you, they call the center, right?
Yeah.
514-777-4530. She never knows the number, so I have to give it. She always looks at me
I
like,
knew it
really?
that time I was going to be able to say it.
Really?
No.
Oh, okay. That's all the time we have today. Georgia, I want to thank you so much for coming back. It's great to have you back. My God, I've missed you.
Thank you.
You brought so much wisdom. And I'd like to also thank Spa Minari. for sponsoring this show. Talk about getting out of self-destructive behavior. Sometimes the answer is to take some time for yourself and maybe go visit a spa. So if you're in the Montreal area, 514-695-5040. And if you mention Straight Talk with Sandra Reish, you will get 15% off of any services. So thank you again, Georgia.
Thank you.
I'd also like to thank all of you for listening to Straight Talk with Sandra Reish, and I'd like to invite you all to come back next week. If you want to find out information about anything we talked about on this show, you can go to helpforanxietydepression.com. You can also get gifts and all sorts of fun stuff on straighttalksandrareish.com. Add the /radio gifts. And check out also my Facebook page, Straight Talk with Sandra Reish. You can leave a question for Georgia and for myself, and don't forget to like us while you're there. You can hear this and any prior show as a podcast on my website, straighttalksandrareish.com, on the podcast app of your iPhone and on iTunes under Straight Talk with Sandra Reish. And feel free to drop me a comment or question anytime at info@helpforanxietydepression.com. If you are a professional and you're looking for keynote speakers or training on anxiety, depression, emotional regulation, or living a purposeful life, remember that we are your source for evidence-based practice and education. My name is Sandra Reish, and I promise I'll help you learn to live your best life again next Thursday, same time, same channel. In the meanwhile, this is Straight Talk with Sandra Reish. Keep your eyes on the stars.
Thank you for listening to Straight Talk with Sandra Reish. We hope you've enjoyed today's show, and we'll tune in again next Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. Now, go live your best life.